Top 5, a show where we count things down from number 5 all the way to number 1. It's just Matthew and I this week. Hi, Matthew.
Woohoo!
I don't know if it's the topic. Maybe it's the topic that has driven everyone else away.
Well, it is depressing.
The top 5 death scenes. Now, they didn't. The person who wrote in did not say whether these had to be just movies or, comic books or whatever. So,
good, because I'm all over the place.
Well, good. I thought it best to leave Jesus off the list, but I think everything else is fair game. And I think why don't you start us out, Matthew?
Why don't I start us out? Because, oh my gosh. My number 5 is actually almost a cheat. And I know what you're thinking, Stephen. You're like, oh my God, you're already starting with this. But you got to stay with me on these.
Oh my God, Matthew's already starting with this.
This is the thing. Since 1963, we have seen repeatedly that each of the incarnations of the Time Lord, known as Theta Sigma, sometimes referred to as Fate, often referred to as the Doctor, each incarnation at the end of their life dies.
Oh, your top 5 better not be all, it should be, my number 5 is the death of number 3, and my number 4 is the death of number 2. And
no, but my number 5 is the death of number 5. Because a lot of times, the first time the Doctor regenerated, it was actually treated kind of like a cute little plot point.
Well, and part of that was, and so for people that don't know, and I'm sure all of our listeners knows because they're the coolest people in the entire world, but some people are new. First time listener, long time caller, right? And they don't know why. They don't know why we suddenly have to have this regeneration scene in the Doctor. And it's because the previous Doctor was too sick.
Yeah, that is exactly what it was. William Hartnell, the first Doctor, had, I believe, arteriosclerosis, which made it very difficult or impossible for him to continue in the job. And so he gave up the role, and the new Doctor, Patrick Troughton, was initially created to be a younger version of him. But subsequent regenerations changed that up. And by the time we got to the regeneration into the 5th Doctor, it was clear that each Doctor is a new and just an entirely new beastie.
Yeah, your DNA is being rewritten on a cellular level.
Yeah. The 3rd Doctor is like a kick-butt karate man, and the 4th Doctor is this weird Toulouse-Lautrec, bug-eyed kind of bohemian. And the 5th Doctor was this nice bland man in a cricket outfit. And so... Did I say bland? I meant
and I was just thinking about that because that really explains why the celery is on his lapel. Celery is the most bland of all vegetables.
Celery is not a food. Celery is actually some sort of, I don't know. It's like packing peanuts.
But I think unconsciously, subconsciously, Freudian tweed slips, right? Maybe you've touched on something there, Matthew.
No, a Freudian slip is when you say one thing and mean your mother. The regeneration of the 5th Doctor was particularly traumatic because 2 was forced to regenerate by the Time Lords into 3, and 3 was poisoned, bitten by a spider, and 4 fell from a telescope and died. But the 5th Doctor sacrificed himself to save the life of his companion Perry. There was enough of the antidote to a poison that they had both inhaled to save either him or save Perry. He saved Perry, and then he lay down and said, "This one feels different." And he started hallucinating. And he saw all of the companions and the friends that he had had over his 3 years telling him that he couldn't give up, that he had to regenerate. And then he saw his worst enemy, the Master, screaming, "No, Doctor, die! Die, Doctor!" And by the way, the man who played the second Master left no scenery unchewed.
Yeah, who do you remember his name off the top of your head? Because I always liked him. He was the one that was always up against 4th and all that stuff, right?
Well, I want to say that the 3rd Doctor actually faced down
the second Master.
The 3rd Doctor faced definitely the first Master. I want to say the second Master didn't regenerate until the 5th Doctor. In any case, the man that I'm referring to is Yeah, Anthony Ainley. His friends called him Ant. The original Doctor, or the original Master, rather, was Roger Delgado, who was brilliant. But Anthony Ainley was a little campier. And I'm not saying that he made Charlotte Rae as Miss Garrett look subtle. I'm just saying that Don Knotts came in one day as Mr. Furley and said, "Hey, baby, you should take it down a notch." But nonetheless, it was a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful sequence. And we get to the point where it seems like the Doctor is not going to regenerate, that he's going to just die as the Master insists that he must. And finally, he sits up. And he's this angry man with a curly head of hair. And Perry says something, and he immediately insults her. And in the next episode, one of the first things he does is strangle her. And it is clear at that point that the Fifth Doctor is well and truly dead. And it nearly put me off Doctor Who. I mean, I stopped watching Doctor Who, the Sixth Doctor era, because the Fifth Doctor had such a nice arc at the end.
It must have been that way for everyone, because didn't Doctor Who kind of trail off as far as viewership, and then it was canceled when Six...
It did not get canceled under Six, but it did take about an 18-month hiatus for retooling and then came back. Part of that, though, the head of the BBC was not a fan of Six. I think they made some errors in the conceptualization of the character, and they started out being too much of a jerk in the hopes that they could do their long arc of having him go from
turn
being
into a nice guy.
A nice guy. But I think they underestimated how poorly people were going to respond based on the fact that the Fifth Doctor had such a great ending and such a great death scene. And if you get a chance, you can go on the YouTube and you can see the regenerations, and it's like bum, 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 regeneration. Fourth Doctor has a long one, and then the Fifth Doctor is like 5 minutes of die, Doctor, die. It's just beautiful. And I recommend that you go and check it out if you can. That's why my number 5 is The Death of 5. My number 4 will not be The Death of 4 because I don't put Tom Baker on any of my top 5
Oh,
lists.
you're so mean.
I'm not mean.
Tom Baker should be on everybody's top 5 list except for mine. Look, listen.
There are 13 Doctors officially, 22 Doctors unofficially, and Tom Baker is officially one of them.
Of the, what is it? Well, not counting Paul McGann, right?
I count Paul.
No, not counting the fact that, he's the longest running Doctor because he was in a movie and then they had radio dramas.
And then 20 years
Tom
later,
Baker,
they gave him an official regeneration.
Yeah, Tom Baker is one of the longest running Doctors, if not the longest running Doctor.
He is the longest contiguously running Doctor. Yes, he did 7 seasons.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Nazis, Matthew. Nazis.
What?
Nobody likes a Nazi.
Nobody likes an Illinois Nazi for sure.
Well, nobody likes World War II Nazis who are trying to steal the Ark of the Covenant. And open it up and gain the power of the 10 Commandments so that they can unleash fire and brimstone and all sorts of other godly forces onto the Allies so that they can win World War II. And nobody likes really snooty Frenchmen either.
That's true.
Belloc deserved what he got.
Belloc deserved what he got, and Tote deserved what he got, and so did Tote's friends Bag and Bucket and I'm going to say
if you haven't figured out what I'm talking about yet, my number 5 is the opening of the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where suddenly Indiana Jones realizes, oh no, you're not supposed to be looking at the face of God. Close your eyes, Marion. Keep them closed no matter what happens. Marion, close your eyes, Marion.
Keep your eyes closed, Marion.
And then they open it up and there's just sand, and Tata starts laughing because it's like, you're all in trouble now. And then all of a sudden these ghosts come flying out and whipping around, and all of a sudden they turn into horrible faces, and then lightning comes shooting out of Belloc, and every Nazi's face melts and blows up. It is pretty impressive when it comes to death scenes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad sequence.
No, it's really good. And if you get to watch it in a nice 35 millimeter print, it's even more impressive. I wonder if there's a 70 millimeter print of Raiders of the Lost Ark somewhere.
That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. Melty faces in Raiders of the Lost Ark. My number 5 death scene. Just because, imagine as a kid, I know today, maybe that is not intense. Maybe that's not scary enough. Maybe that's not hardcore. Or what's the phrase that people use today instead of hardcore?
Lord, if I know, I'm 48 years old. Man.
Death Lord or whatever it is.
It's Edgelord.
Oh, Edgelord. Is that it?
No, Edgelord is not a good thing, dude.
Well, but I mean, today some people have been advanced so far that, melty faces are not terrifying, are not scary.
My favorite He-Man action figure, Melty Faces.
Melty Faces.
Melty Faces.
But imagine you're 10 years old and you've never seen anything like this. I mean, Freddy Krueger isn't out yet. We don't have, we do have Halloween, but you don't have Melty Faces in Halloween. And then all of a sudden, people's faces are literally melting. They're using heat guns, giant air blowers to melt these wax faces of everybody.
It's impressive. It is.
It is. And it's also scary. And it's also very impressive on how the mystical forces can kill Nazis. And so that's why Raiders of the Lost Ark, kill the Nazi melty faces, is my number 5 death scene.
Kill the Nazi melty faces, heroes in
I don't know if there's anything else. I mean, you can call it opening the Ark, I think is what the chapter name is on the DVD. But I mean, melty faces. You got melted, dude. You stared into the eye of God.
And God looked back.
And said, I'm going to smote you.
Melt your
They were
face.
smotened.
Smotened?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes you get some...
Isn't that Green Arrow's girlfriend?
So we take the graham crackers and the chocolate and the marshmallows. It's a smotened. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is the death of Olivia Castle.
And
you say, I don't know who that is.
I really am. I really am. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Everybody listening to this show says I don't know who that is.
Is that from the TV show Castle?
It is not. When I explain to you who it is, everyone who knows, and a few people who don't know and spend some time on YouTube will know exactly what I'm talking about. There is a film series called Final Destination.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Final Destination is a series which purports that death is
death is always lurking. Death is just around the corner. You can never cheat death.
It's not like being cheated.
No.
So at the beginning of every Final Destination movie, a group of people accidentally doesn't die in a terrible cataclysm, as you would say. And
yes, a cataclysm.
Cataclysm. This terrible cataclysm in the Final Destination 5 is actually a bridge collapse. So this bridge collapses and a bunch of people get off the bridge. And among these people is Olivia. Olivia Castle is, if you've ever seen a horror movie, there's always, I believe,
the virgin, right? Is she the virgin of the horror movie?
She's the other one.
Oh, okay. She's the one that dies first.
Well, in the, what is it? The House in the Woods, the Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one, too.
The H word.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She is, I believe, the token H word. She's really beautiful. And the one thing about her that is unusual for the hot girl who walks around with her belly button out and being like, hi, I'm Olivia, is that she wears glasses.
Okay.
This is a recurring theme throughout the film is she wears glasses and she doesn't like it. And she's your standard scantily dressed young woman in the movie doing her young woman thing, and that's fine. But she has glasses. Now I want to emphasize that she does not like having glasses, Stephen. And what do you do when you have glasses and don't like it?
You wear them.
You get laser eye surgery.
Oh yeah, laser eye surgery. Congratulations for those of you that can get laser eye surgery. Some of us
Well,
can't.
Olivia will wish she hadn't, because the thing about Final Destination movies is bad things happen.
Olivia just going to step out of the room for just a moment.
Yeah, step out of the room. Okay, so in Final Destination 3, there's a very, very convoluted series of events that actually ends in a pair of girls getting cooked to death in a tanning bed. And until Final Destination 5, it was probably the most convolutedly stupid death, with the exception of the actor who played Commander Steele in Final Destination 4, whose ending was appropriate. I'll go there later if you ask me on the interwebs. But Olivia is getting laser eye surgery, and of course, death causes these coincidences to happen, and something happens that causes the doctor to step out, and some water spills.
Oh no!
And turns the laser up to laser power. And it is.
Why is there an 11 on this eye surgery laser? We never go past 1.
It is ugly, and I don't want to go into it because it's super gross.
I'm sure it melts all the way through her head.
No, it does
and shoots
not
out the other side.
But it's awful. And then she gets up and she stumbles out, and
because it's been cauterized.
She's stumbling around, and this bad thing has happened. She trips and falls out a window.
No. But that doesn't kill her.
Stories.
She falls into a truck of glass.
She falls 4 stories to the pavement below, and from a wide shot, you see the cars running by in traffic. And what you see is, and forgive me, faithful spoiler, you see her eye that was not hit by the laser fly across the street and crash and land, and then a car runs over it.
Was Final Destination 5 one of those 3D movies?
I don't know if 5 was 3D. I know 4 was.
Okay.
It probably was, because it came out in 2011, and everything.
I'm just thinking, why does the eye need to fly, towards the audience? You do it because it's 3D or something like that.
Yeah, I think you may be right, but it is horrifying. And the part of it that's horrifying is actually the part before she dies. But it's super cruel that she falls and she dies, and her remaining eye, the one that was not murdered by laser, gets crunched. And it's ugly and it's awful and it's just sad and sad and sad. But it is perhaps the most memorable death in all the Final Destination series. I watched these with my kid this spring because she's 14, and I figure, at this point, she's as traumatized as she's gonna get.
I mean, yeah, sure, okay. But
yeah, and we talked about how this is not realistic. It's horror films. It's goofy, grody horror films, and then we watched it and we giggled. But Final Destination 5, The Death of Olivia Castle, is my number 4, but it's memorable for all the wrong reasons.
So, listeners who are like, why can't you guys take these death scenes seriously? Why? It's fine to joke around. It's fine to have fun. I know some people are just like, oh, man, you guys joke around too much. It's okay to have fun. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We're all going to die at some point. And it just depends on how you die. Maybe your face is going to get melted off. Maybe your eyeball's going to go squirting across the screen and get run over in a 3D theater. Mm-hmm. But maybe you can just approach death as a natural thing that's going to happen and just embrace death when it arrives. Sometimes, though, Matthew, death is going to want to play a game of chess with you, right? Mm-hmm. That's okay, too. Sometimes death will come from a galaxy far, far away, and he will stand there with a big red lightsaber, and your only answer and the only thing that you can do when you know you are facing your imminent death is to say, if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can ever imagine. Obi-Wan Kenobi's death scene in Star Wars is simply brilliant, not because you've got 2 old guys fighting with their sticks.
And they are comparatively to the later ones, they are very stiff.
Yeah, and even though they're old, they are trying to figure out, how do we want to deal with this? We were once friends. You don't know that if this is the first time you've ever seen Star Wars in 1977, but hey. At some point, though,
by that point in the film, Obi-Wan has explained who Vader was.
At some point, Obi-Wan Kenobi is just like, you know what? I should just die. It's going to be okay if I die. And he turns off his lightsaber, and he just stands there and lets Darth Vader turn him into a ghost. And then he goes on and joins with the Force. I mean, you won't see something like that happen until Luke Skywalker does it.
25 years later.
Yeah.
45 years later.
So my number 4 is Obi-Wan Kenobi's death, where he just embraces it and just accepts it as, this is the next step of me going into the next stage of whatever, even if there is no whatever afterwards.
Right.
Even though, literally 10 seconds later, he's like, run, Luke, run.
Sure.
So yeah, I dig that scene. Always have. Not because the good guy, Luke, quote unquote, loses.
He does.
No, he doesn't. He becomes more powerful than you can ever imagine, Matthew.
Sure, but Vader gets to go flying around the universe and do his Vader thing.
He is a Force spirit. He can go anywhere.
Mostly he goes to the Chili's.
I think he actually goes into the, I think he just goes into the locker room and watches the stormtroopers change. Matthew, what is your number 3?
Okay. My number 3, in the words of Emily Bronte, "O day, he cannot die when thou so fair art shining." Look it up. It's a poem. Yes, I know a poem. Don't have a heart attack. My number 3.
Which would also be a very memorable death scene, right? Where you open up a book of poetry and you're like, oh my God, Matthew knows poetry.
Flavin was the thing, and guy. This week's list is actually one that I really enjoyed, because when you say top 5 random thing, a lot of times my brain goes to the things that I have seen and the things that I love.
Yeah, of course. That's the whole point, right?
Right. And there are times when people will say, man, or, theoretical people in my head who may or may not actually exist.
They all sound like me.
Yeah, no, not usually. Like, why do you talk about the same movies all the time?
A, because Matthew never goes to the movies, and B, he watches the same stuff 20 different times on his TiVo.
I have things that I enjoy, and there are some things that I enjoy, and I will just watch and watch and watch and watch and watch. And the reason why is because they resonate with me on some level.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that resonates with me on the strongest level is the last third of a particularly lovely cartoon from the year you and I turned 11. This cartoon, of course, has come up in many a top 5. Carl is out there listening. He'll tell us how many times I have referenced my number 3, the movie Heavy Metal.
Oh, yeah.
The ending sequence featuring the, spoilers, death of Tarna, the last of the Terrakian race. Tarna's story is the last of a series of interlinked stories indicating that an evil orb, calling itself Lochnar, exists across time, space, and dimension. And basically in every dimension, there is a Lochnar that is a kind of a reflection of or a part of this core Lochnar that's going to kill and destroy everything in sight. It's going to stomp evil, and death shall fall across the sky, wah-dee-do-da. In the final sequence of the movie Heavy Metal, we end up on this strange kind of antediluvian weird crapsack world where Tarna is called by the elders of a city that's been attacked by barbarians. The barbarians, of course, are corrupted by the Lochnar, and they're all green for some reason. And Tarna shows up to fight them. Now, being that this movie is what it is, and don't get me wrong, I admit to you that this movie has elements in it that are both sexist and misogynistic. Tarna is a very, very hot woman who spends a big portion of the film naked. But near the end, she defeats the evil general, and with her dying breath, on the back of her dying breath's bird, or her bird's dying breath, she and her bird are dying. They fly into the sky as the orchestral score just kind of crests and blah, blah, blah. And she gathers all of her power into one giant fireball and destroys the Lochnar across all the myriad dimensions with, the sacrifice of her essence and herself and her bird, who is actually the hero of the piece, because the bird is a lot more effective in combat than Tarna herself. But we don't hold that against her. But the moment when the music just blows up and it's fully orchestral stuff, it's not what the title of the film would expect. It's not like an Eddie Van Halen solo. It's not Ronnie James Dio screaming about a rainbow in the dark. It's da 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 da, and the huge explosion, and then of course the house explodes. They didn't have enough money to actually animate the house, so it's literally a model house blowing up on screen, and you're like, they didn't even rotoscope it, you guys. They couldn't. They ran out of money. But it's still an incredible death because of the fact that she destroys the ultimate evil, and we discover the other shoe drops. The hidden element of the framing sequence of the movie is revealed. And I'm not going to spoiler it for you because it's only a 43-year-old movie. You'll probably haven't seen it 150 times. I have, and I'll tell you, go see it right now, because The Death of Tarna is not only on my top 5, it should be on your top 5 as well. And if it's not on your top 5, Stephen, well,
it's not on my top 5, but I've got a great side story.
Okay, what do you got?
So on my mother's side of the family, I am the oldest of all the cousins, right? So that means everybody is younger, was born after 1970. On my dad's side of the family, I'm like towards the bottom of the cousins, like one of the youngest cousins on my dad's side of the family. And I remember it had to have been the year, or maybe the year after Heavy Metal came out. We did a big family reunion. So all the cousins and brothers and sisters were all together, and all the kids were together. And I remember hanging out with my cousins, and they just kept talking about this movie. And they kept going, yeah, and there's this guy that's running around, and he's like, and there's no way I'm going to run around this place with my dork hanging out. And I'm like, what is this movie that you are talking about? And they're like, dude, it's Heavy Metal. And it's like, probably at that time, what year was Heavy Metal? 81, so I would have been 11, like you said earlier. I would not have been allowed to see an R-rated movie. In fact, it wasn't until I was 15 or 16 that I just started going to R-rated movies without my parents' permission. But it took me until, because Heavy Metal was not something that you could easily get on VHS. It was a movie that I didn't get to watch and see until probably 91 or 92. So almost a decade after.
Which may have actually been my copy by that point.
No, I know it wasn't, because I think I actually bought it when it came out, when they reissued it. And then I was like, oh man, I want to see what all this hype is about. For the last 10, 11 years, I've been thinking in my head about my cousins talking about this movie Heavy Metal. And I was kind of somewhat disappointed. 11 years of hype or 12 years of hype kind of boils down into, oh, yeah, okay. Okay, I'm not going to run around this place with my dork hanging out. That's John Candy. Yeah, that's great.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. You know what else is a bummer?
What's a bummer?
Okay, so check this out.
All right.
You are...
Number 6?
No, you are number 1. For whatever reason. We're number 3s, dude. Come on, pay attention.
Okay, sorry.
For whatever reason, you decide that you're going to take money from your workplace, right?
Ooh.
I know sometimes people are just like, hey, there's this petty cash lying around. Let me take a couple dollars, or let me take a couple $10,000. And then you panic and you start to run far away. You drive all night, drive all day, trying to get away from people who might be following you, trying to catch you, trying to throw you in jail for, borrowing a few $1,000s.
Sure.
And so you're like, man, I'm really tired. I need to stop for the night.
At this scary hotel?
At this motel. It's just a normal, off the interstate hotel. The proprietor seems very, very nice. He's a super nice, swell guy. He talks about his mother so lovingly. And so you get a room and you go in and you take a shower. And in this hot, steamy scene, suddenly the curtain pulls back and you are stabbed to death multiple times, screaming as you fall, and as your eye watches your blood slowly drain down that shower drain. And we're only 1/3 of the way through the movie.
I know.
We've still got 2/3 of the movie to figure out. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Janet Leigh and the famous death scene in Psycho. It's been analyzed, reanalyzed, broken down. No, I don't. I don't remember her name.
Her name is Lila.
Her name doesn't matter.
Yeah, her name is Marion. Lila's her sister.
Yeah. Doesn't matter because she's dead. But like I said, that scene...
Did you see the shot-for-shot remake where she was Anne Heche?
No, I don't want to...
Yeah,
if you listen to Kevin Smith's show, there's a little great theme song for Anne Heche. So our listeners who do listen know what I'm talking about. So... there's something about that Psycho death scene that's been analyzed and reanalyzed and broken down and scattered about, and myths and legends and all sorts of things. But when you boil it down and you just look at how well that death scene is executed, and the fact that you think it's one person committing the murder and then you find out that it's not, that Psycho death scene definitely deserves a place in people's top 5s. And Psycho lands on my number 3 for the number 3 best death scene, or I shouldn't say best, but the number 3 death scene.
Yeah. They're not necessarily best death scenes, but they're definitely...
Again, we're all going to die. Why not go out with a little style, right?
Why you got to be like that?
Just because I know it bothers you. That's the main thing.
That's true. So
I think we've landed at number 2.
We have landed at our number 2. And, Stephen, by the way, has admitted that he is intentionally antagonizing me. So write this down. It happens once a decade.
No, it happens every week when I bring up death.
No, not necessarily, although Fruity Pebbles is getting old. The thing about it is, you and I have talked about this at length, both on the show and off the show, that there's a certain age.
It's actually tricks, by the way.
An age range at which something will just indelibly brand itself into your psyche.
Yes, usually around the age of 13, 14 years old.
Yeah. The first one that really stuck with me actually was closer to the age of 8. And this is important because this is an experience that I've probably talked about many times on this show previously. But here it fits. And the reason that it fits is in the year 2015 or 16, I took this experience that I had at 8 and I said, hey, kid, daughter, person, sit down. We're going to watch this movie and you're going to have the same experience at 12 that I had at 8. And we sat and we watched the movie, The Black Hole. It's 59 minutes, something like that, 68, 78 minutes.
It's feature
minutes.
length. It's got to be at least 75 minutes. So
all right, so it's 98 minutes long.
And it's about an hour longer than it should be.
It's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in space with cyborgs.
Yes.
And it's good. It's not great. It's transformative for me. Specifically, it's a movie that had a bigger effect on me than Star Wars. And that's not because I'm a contrarian douchebag.
No, at some point you and I need to have a big I know you and I have had big discussions about Black Hole before.
Sure.
But we need to have that discussion again because I saw that movie.
Is what we need.
We've already done a bonus tracks
of The Black Hole.
I'm pretty sure we have. You were with me.
And I was not invited?
No, you were with me.
No, well, we haven't done The Black Hole.
I'm pretty sure we have.
No, I don't think we have.
I'm pretty sure we have, dude.
I don't think we have.
If we haven't, then we'll do it. But
me too. We do.
No, okay. So we did an entire episode of the Major Spoilers podcast about the Black Hole, not the comic books, but about the Black Hole. This was pre our Patreon. This was pre our Funding Goat.
I believe,
and we did an entire episode where we all sat down and watched the movie, and then we talked about it afterwards.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, I'll find the episode number.
You'll find it out.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that movie. That movie has a little bit of everything if you're really willing to work for it. And we watched this movie, The Widget and I. We watched it together, and we got to the end of the film. So at the end of the film, things are looking dark for our heroes. The evil Dr. Reinhardt is about to plunge them into the black hole to their death, probably, to be sucked into another dimension and, maybe turned into fish. Nobody knows. And Maximilian, the evil robot, has come a-gunning for them. And he's got a lot of guns, by the way. He's a gun beast. So he is attacking. And old Bob, who is an elderly relic who's been floating around this ship for 45 years, leaps into the way of this laser blast, takes a laser blast to save his friends. Now, this is a robot. This is a robot who is basically, what if R2-D2 could fly and was voiced by the guy who rode the bomb down to Earth in Dr. Strangelove? That is literally what it is. And this robot falls to the ground, and he's like, I can't make it. I can't go any further. And the other robots are like, no, you can. He's like, no, just remember to uphold the honor of the old unit. And the robots in this movie, Vincent and old Bob, have specific body types where their head looks like it has a hat on. And when their head is in an elevated state, they have a little head and then a hat on top. But in times where they need to protect themselves, it can actually retract into the body. And his head retracts and it just falls. And it's like, oh, that's remarkably powerful. That really does feel like a person dying, and the old cliche in the Western movies of falling back and your head lolls in the arms, and then the person's like, no.
Yeah.
And Widget was watching this, and she's like, wait, no. And she's tearing up. She's like, no, they can't kill him. And then, of course, we watch the end of the movie, and the end of the movie is just a total, just kind of all over the place, crazy Studio Gainax mind screw. And it's nuts, but she couldn't get past that moment where the cute robot died. And I'm like, I really couldn't either in 1979. She's like, well, then why would you share it with me? You're a terrible person.
And you said yes. Yes, I am.
Well, that's how the family goes.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that death scene stuck with me to the point where I had actually almost forgotten it when I shared it with a kid. And then she was likewise traumatized for it. But it's literally props. It's a couple of props, one voiced by Roddy McDowall, sitting there talking to another prop. And this prop is voiced, oh God, what is that guy's name?
It's the same guy that's been in like all the Disney Western movies. The guy that would voice not the Sheriff of Nottingham, Slim Pickens. Yeah,
Slim Pickens. You know Slim Pickens.
I do know him, not
Slim
personally,
Pickens.
mind you, but I do know him.
It's one prop voiced by Slim Pickens, one prop voiced by Roddy McDowall, talking back and forth like a couple of guys in an old army pick about, no, you've got to do it for Stella. But the death of old Bob is incredibly powerful. And it's one of the moments that I feel like in that film is really underserved, and people kind of ignore it because of the movie being, I'm going to say, pretty roundly called a terrible, boring flop.
Oh,
and
man.
It's not a terrible, boring flop. It's not.
Our memories must be getting really bad, Matthew.
No.
We did a whole episode on the black hole just over a year ago as of this recording, in August of 2017, on a little show called Zach on Film.
Zach on
We spent the entire time talking about the black hole on that episode. And I think I may have been on maybe one of my best troll games at the time, because in the comments section, Mike says this movie is an Academy Award nominee. It was also nominated for a couple of Saturn and Hugo Awards. It's nowhere near the worst movie of all time, and it is very underrated, to which I replied, Suicide Squad was an Academy Award winner.
Oh, you are so bad. I've actually blocked out most of Zach on Film.
No, that's such a great show. Such a great show. Thank you for that, Matthew. My number 2. Oh, man, how did I get, unintentionally, 2 Harrison Ford movies in my top 5?
Yeah, unintentionally.
No, actually,
Sure.
it was. It actually
I got
was.
Heavy Metal in the Black Hole unintentionally.
Well, I don't talk about this movie a whole lot, but when it comes to death scenes, this death scene is somewhat emotional.
Oh.
Here's this whole scene where Harrison Ford, playing this guy named Deckard, has been tasked with going and hunting down these replicants, these androids, these cyborgs that no one, they can blend in with humanity. And a bunch of these androids have kind of gone rogue, and they've come back to Earth. And if you come back to Earth, it's instant death. They want to come back to Earth because their termination date is due. They know that they're going to die, and they just want to meet their maker and maybe see if it can be undone. And Roy Batty, played by
Rutger
Hauer, starts to have this, battle to the death with Harrison Ford's Deckard character. And when Deckard thinks he's about to die, Roy Batty appears holding, one hand is bloody because Harrison Ford, I think, slammed him in with a nail or something. Mm-hmm. And then he's holding a dove in his other hand that he's done. And he just says, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I've watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. Time to die. Yeah. And then Rutger Hauer's character just dies in Blade Runner. And the dove goes, I think the dove goes flying away, if I remember. And that's why doves cry.
Yes, this is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Time to die.
Yeah. But the weird part?
The sequel?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen the sequel.
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
For me. The weird part is, depending on who you believe, that whole scene or that whole sequence was not entirely in the script.
That Rutger Hauer's just improvising it?
Not entirely improvising it, because a lot of it is there. But apparently the screenwriter has said that Hauer wrote most of that script. And there are chunks of it that are in the screenplay. And I believe at one point Rutger was like, well, I cut some chunks out and I added a little bit. But when you look at it, what was actually written and what Rutger Hauer says, and the way he says it is amazing, is completely different. So you can say that Rutger Hauer probably really did rewrite the whole thing, even though he's like, oh, no, I just took some things out and moved some stuff around. But I really like that because it shows that this android, this Blade,
they're androids.
Runner.
Yeah, you wonder if they dream. And if they do they dream of electric sheep?
No, they actually dream of electric razors.
I think they dream of
top.
turtles, but anyway, yes.
No, blue turtles.
Yes, android turtles. Here's the weird thing. I guess I've never read that that death speech, or seen it printed out. And so I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. And I didn't know they actually meant like C-beams.
Right.
I always thought they meant like C-beams, like water, rippling through the water.
Beams of the sea.
And then when you really think about what's going on in that, I mean, we know at the beginning of the movie, they're like, oh, yeah, there's androids that are out mining or going out into space and doing these very dangerous missions that humans can't do. And then you're like, oh, yeah, we're way out in the belt of Orion or off the shoulder of Orion. And we're at this thing called the Tannhauser Gate. And you're just like, wait a minute. Why are people still living on Earth? Why haven't they evacuated? Of course, that leads into, some issues of the haves and the have-nots. But
Right.
There's a lot of the world of Blade Runner that even in the sequel is not explored.
Yeah, it's probably for the best.
Yeah, but Roy Batty's death scene in Blade Runner is fantastic, and go watch it.
That's a good one. That's a very good one.
Are we already at our number ones?
Are we?
I believe we are.
Our number one.
Let us get to our number one.
Number one
death scene.
Our number one death scene is kind of ironic.
Is it?
It is for me, at least, because it is the year 2017.
Well, I mean, as of this recording, it's 2018.
Okay, it's the year 2018. I'm not good with time.
Oh, boy.
But one of the things that you will find in the year 2018, and I don't know if you knew this, is that superhero stories are all the rage.
Yeah, they're
everywhere.
Yeah.
They're in the movies. They're in the thing. They're
on the TV. They're in the comic books. They're in your podcasts. They're in your funny pages.
Here's something ironic.
You can't get away from them.
On the CW.
Yeah, the CWs.
The official country and western website.
Used to be the UPN and the WB. That's what happened when they merged. They became the CW.
The combined W.
Yes.
That's what it's in. You will find two shows as a kind of like key parts of their superhero block. You got your Flash in The Flash, and you got your Supergirl in The Supergirl.
Yeah.
2016, 2017, 2018. These are a big deal on the TV, making money for the CW.
Yeah, they are.
DC, everything.
Yeah, people are talking about it. Preach, brother. Preach, brother.
In the year 1986, however, both of those characters were considered boring and expendable enough to be thrown by the side. And so it came to be that in issue 7 of Crisis on Infinite Earths, the big, first really big, giant, world-spanning crossover. There were a couple that came before it. I know Secret Wars predated it, but Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of set the template for everything has world-shattering stakes. Everything is a huge, big, honking deal. And there's a point where the evil Anti-Monitor is ready to destroy the 5 remaining universes. Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 4, Earth S, and Earth X. Yes, I remember it. Shut up.
Yes.
And Superman goes into battle against the Monitor, and Superman very nearly falls against the Monitor.
Yeah, and then the Monitor just says, Martha! And then Batman's like, why did you say that?
I hate you. I hate you so much. No, that is not what happens, and don't listen to him anymore. What happens is Superman's younger cousin, a mere girl, albeit super, leaps in, and it is a moment that is really kind of breathtaking. If you read, a lot of comics, which, I have, Kara Zor-El is always the character who's played as, the young college girl looking for romance, tee-hee, running around the world. She's in love with aliens. Yeah. She's in love with some underground guy, Marrow the Merc.
A centaur who used to be a horse that didn't turn into a horse.
He was a man who became a centaur and then became a horse. No, he was a horse who became a man who became skip it. The deal is this. Supergirl goes in guns blazing.
Yeah, she does.
And it is a moment where you realize that somebody finally started thinking about just how powerful a Kryptonian is. And she very nearly kills the Monitor. She gets in there and she injures him to the point where he literally has to back down. Nearly defeated Superman. Supergirl goes in and just tears him a new one and is fatally wounded.
No. No, Superman will carry his cousin out, crying and screaming at the top of his lungs. Why? And all the other superheroes are just going to stand around on that cover. You're right. It is a Michelangelo reference.
It's the Pieta. And you know what's even better about this whole Supergirl moment is...
What's that?
She doesn't die immediately.
Right. She's just sitting there I'm not dead yet. Get me to the hospital, fool.
She's like, I feel better. No, she's lying there and she's telling Clark that he is her hero and that she loves him. And then she just dies. And she dies to save the universe and her last remaining relative.
Mm-hmm.
And she does it in such a fashion where you realize that there's a good chance, if you actually break this down, that she may be more powerful and more noble than Superman himself, which in the DC universe is saying something. Don't get me started on the Flash's death. I always thought that was kind of terrible. But my number one, the death of Supergirl in Crisis on Infinite Earths #7, even 35 years later, still has a lot of heft to it.
Oh, sure.
And part of that is Marv Wolfman and George Perez doing some amazing work. But man, it's a tearjerker. Also, it is totally a kick butt moment for her.
I would argue that it is also super downplayed because the very next issue, Barry bites it.
Yeah, they were. Trying to up the end.
Yeah, she is like super. Her death is overshadowed by Barry's ultimate sacrifice. And people may be wondering, does that mean Steven's going to have the death of Barry Allen as his number one? Because Steven talks a lot about the ultimate sacrifice,
Barry Allen.
And I got to tell you,
the answer is no.
The answer is no, because here's the thing. I don't consider Barry Allen dead. I mean, if he were dead as of this recording, if he were still gone, I would say yes, one of the best deaths of all time. But man, it really annoyed me when they decided to bring back Barry Allen. And so I'm not dismissing his ultimate sacrifice.
Yes, you
I
are.
am, but is not my number one, nor is, and I'm sure the person who suggested this top 10 death scenes or top 5 death scenes is hoping that I will talk about the girl. Yeah, well, there you go. I'm hoping that the person who suggested this isn't thinking that I'm going to talk about the girl who drowned and her dying thought was flying off into the sky on a car, because that's not my number one.
We go together like
ding-a-ding. It's not Grease. Grease is not the...
Clang, a flippity flappity.
Blue, blah. My number one. So, it's horrible when this happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible when, you lose a parent, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's horrible when the parent goes before the kid goes. Because then the kid is just left there going, what do I do now? How do I survive without this parent? And I think it becomes worse maybe the younger you are. And the death of a parent becomes even more, I guess, impactful when you've spent a large amount of your time having happy fun times, where you're seeing the kid and the kid's having fun and he's with all of his friends and everybody's singing and dancing. And then the heart-wrencher, the knife in the gut, is when you do it in animated form.
Oh, no.
And when you are watching the movie and suddenly the mother raises her head up really high and sniffs around and says, "Run, Bambi. Run, Bambi." And then Bambi is just running. And the mother's just screaming, "Just run, run." And then you hear kapow. You hear that shot. And Bambi, Bambi, thankfully, has made it back to the warren or the den or whatever the deer's little briar patch thing is. And he's safe, right? But Mom's not there. And he's like, "Mother?" He goes outside and he's just like, "Mother! Mother!" And he's just screaming for his mom. And then the animators start making it snow. And you just hear this little bleeding deer just, "Mother!" And then finally the dad shows up, or who we presume is the dad, the giant buck of the forest shows up. And he's like, your mother is gone now. You will come with me.
And I will eat you.
And then the movie just fades out, right? And you're like, holy crapola. And then it comes back up, and it's not Bambi as a little fawn anymore. Bambi is a full-grown adult, or, he's a teenager or whatever, right, when we come back. And so we're skipping all of this time that he spent with his dad.
Right, but in the meantime, he's covered his red nose with mud.
Yes.
And he's trying to, try out for Santa's sled team. So,
but, man,
it's not like everything is.
The death of Bambi's mother in the movie Bambi is like, it's so brilliant on a number of different levels because we don't have to see the mother getting shot, right? Everything is done through this panicked eyes of a child as Bambi is running away from the scene. And we're just hearing the mother plead, run, 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 run. And we don't need to see Bambi's mother fall. We just need to hear that gunshot echo throughout the forest. We know, because we're horrible human beings, we know what that means to Bambi's mother.
No.
And we don't even need to see Bambi come out and find his dead mother and, poke it with his head. And, Mom, why won't you get up? Mom, wake up. Come on, Mom. Come on. Let's play. We don't have to see that. I mean, we saw that. I mean, you see that in the, what's the Timon and Pumbaa, the
Lion King?
The Lion King. You see that where, Simba's there pushing his dad saying, Dad, wake up, Dad. But Bambi doesn't even get that. He doesn't even get that closure. And then he is immediately sucked away from all of his friends to go learn what it means to be a man with the buck of the forest. So my number one, I know, right? Here we're bringing this whole show down with one of the most tragic deaths, with one of the most infamous death scenes of all time, in my opinion.
I agree.
Bambi's mother from Bambi.
And you know what's really weird?
What's that?
In 1942, Bambi was a popular boy's name.
Yeah.
And now, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not even really a popular girl's name.
Well, it is if you're in the adult film industry.
Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, here's where you come in.
What is that, an F sharp?
Head over to majorspoilers.com, and in the comment section for this episode, use the comment section to share your top 5 death scenes. Doesn't have to say favorite death scenes, but your top 5 death scenes. These could be horrible death scenes. These could be great death scenes. These could be like comedic death scenes. Like when that one stormtrooper is like shooting and he's not even shooting right. And he's just like, and falls off the off the thing for no reason.
Scream off the wall of the thing, yeah. Or the one in Final Destination 4 where the guy gets hit and smashed into a chain link fence, but it's this weird razor sharp chain link fence, and it slices him into little squares, and it's so stupid. Yeah. And then the same thing happens in Resident Evil, and you're like, it's even stupider there.
Yeah. No, I mean, use your imagination. I mean, but make it like real. Don't like share it like, here's how I'm going to kill Matthew kind of stuff. I don't want to hear that. Nobody wants that.
Hey.
But top 5 death scenes. I'm going to lock him and Steven in a room with their legs chained together, and there's a key. Anyway,
Mr. Schleicher, I'd like to play a game.
That wraps it up for the top 5 death scenes. Listen, if you would like to make a suggestion for the top 5 podcast, all you have to do is head to just send us an email, podcast@majorspoilers.com, and let us know. In the subject line, say top 5 so that I know that it's top 5, and then put down your suggestion or suggestions. Although it's probably best if you do one suggestion per email, because once I use the suggestion, I delete the email. That's how I'm able to maintain that low inbox 0 count that I'm been fawning over the last couple of months.
Yeah, there's also the fact that when I send him an email, he's just like, zoot.
I know, inbox 0. It's so wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. Psych. Also, if you found a little fun in this, I know it's a morbid topic, but if you had a little fun with this top 5, how about giving a little back? How about heading over to patreon.com/majorspoilers and kicking us $1 or $2 per month? $2 a month? Man, that would be very, very helpful. It would allow us to keep this show going far into the future. And you know what? If you go over to patreon.com/majorspoilers and you sign up today, we can get even closer to a goal, which will bring you top 5 every single week. How's that sound? Not every other week. Every week, top 5. Sounds pretty good to me. Patreon.com/majorspoilers. We thank you for your support. And we'll talk with you next time when we go through lists, talk about lists, read lists, make fun of our lists. Yeah, because everybody loves a list. Take care.
This podcast is copyright 2018 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.